The Eidolon sector lies at the heart of the Eye of Terror, at the point where reality bleeds away into the formless tides of the Immaterium. Stronghold of the Despoiler, headwater of every Black Crusade, there is no mortal law here that is not imposed by cruelty, and no physical law beyond the whim of the Dark Gods. The Plague Planet, home of Mortarion and his Death Guard Traitor Legion. This is a world of 10,000 contagions, where skies weep with pus and seas teem with disease. Sortiaris is the current homeworld of the Thousand Suns Traitor Legion. Ringed by the screaming souls of the betrayed dead and blasted by the tides of the warp. It is a planet no sane man would tread without cause, or at least without a numberless army at his back. Oliensis, throne of decadence, and bane of many a righteous soul. The world is a living perversion, a deathless monument to the pursuit of pleasure above all else. Though the world's origins are argued over by the Adepts of Terror, it is known that at least one Space Marine chapter met its demise on the Oliensis surface. Reports suggest that those who fall to Oliensis' embrace are reborn as blasphemous mirrors of their prior selves, shackled to the will of Slaanesh. Drakasi, Khorne's slaughter pit. Only the strongest survive the crucible of its arenas, and then only until the favor of the gods turns against them once more. Eidolon itself was once an Eldari world, but now lies shackled by the madness of chaos, with an empire dedicated to each of the chaos powers constantly vying with the others for dominance. It is said that there are more ways to die on Eidolon than anywhere else. Though as no one ever returns, this can be considered little more than rumor.
Fabius Bile, the Clone Lord, the Primogenitor, the Manflayer, and the Spider, is a Chaos Space Marine Apothecary and a Chaos Lord. Prior to the defeat of the Horus Heresy, he was a Lieutenant Commander and Chief Apothecary of the Emperor's Children Legion. He is now an infamous mad scientist specializing in genetic manipulation and the creation of enhanced warriors. Unlike most of the Emperor's children, Bile does not follow Slaanesh. Instead, he devotes himself to science and research into the creation of space marines. Fabius was born on Terra to European nobility. He spent at least part, if not all, of his childhood in a region named Ingolstadt, potentially related to the barbarian city. As a child, he learned the art of flesh crafting from one of his family's servants. Among his first experiments was modifying mice to duel each other in elaborate garb, and was inconsolable when they disobeyed his orders and killed one another. Shortly after, he earned the honor of being inducted into the 3rd Legion. Fabius was the sole member of the original Legion's command structure amongst the 200 survivors of the Plight that caused organ degeneration in the Emperor's children as a result of a Selenite plot. Despite this, he did not seek promotion, being instead dedicated to his work to reverse the disease. He was nicknamed the Spider by other members of the Legion. By the end of the Great Crusade, Fabius had risen to Chief Apothecary of the Emperor's Children and was known for his reclusive and inquisitive nature. As the heresy and betrayal of the Emperor's children loomed, Fabius managed to convince Fulgrim that he could improve upon the Legion's gene seed and finalize their quest for perfection. To this end, Fabius began experimenting on both Emperor's children and blood angels wounded or slain in the war on murder. This began Fabius's descent into corruption and madness as his experiments became ever more extreme. Once the Horus Heresy began and the Imperium became divided, Fabius was held in high esteem by both Horus and Erebus for his skills in genetic research. Omegon was told by Horus to give Fabius the stolen data from the Primarch project. However, the data Omegon gave Bile was purposefully flawed, so that the traitors would waste manpower and resources, while it would be impossible to gain any benefit from it. Following the drop site massacre, Fabius trawled the ancient coral conclaves on Estevan V, scavenging knowledge left there by the war singers of the Estevan system. Fabius joined several Emperor's Children commanders such as Lucius and Marius Viroshan in using extreme torture to exorcise the demon that was inhabiting Fulgrim. At his Primarch's demand, Fabius produced his first clone Primarch, creating a replica of Ferrus Manus, which Fulgrim tried to again convert to his cause and killing him after he refused. Fabius created multiple clones of Ferrus, all refusing Fulgrim before being killed. Fabius proved vital for the Emperor's Children during the Heresy, reviving both Eidolon and Lucius at the demand of their Primarch. As the war ground on his experiments became more and more depraved, torturing captive space marines of both allied and enemy legions to give birth to his first generation of Terrata. During the end of the Heresy, Fabius took part in his legion's attack on Terra, although neither he or his legion were actually involved in the siege of the Imperial Palace. Instead, they attacked the general population. In the legion's unrestrained fervor, millions of Earth's civilians were murdered. Bile used the opportunity to perform horrific experiments on captives. Human victims were rendered down to create special drugs which heightened the legionnaires' feeling of ecstasy. It is possible that Earth served as the first example of Fabius's subsequent atrocious experiments on entire planetary populations. During the Siege of Terra, Fabius had an epiphany. Seeing the uselessness of what the traitor legions were trying to accomplish, he left Terra before the death of Horus, along with a retinue of altered followers. The act incensed Fulgrim, who put a bounty on his head. Bile was meanwhile hunted by the Salamanders and narrowly escaped their wrath. For all his twisted genius, Bile could not hold back the furious crusade of the Loyalists that launched outward from ravaged Terra. Retribution finally caught him in the Arden system, where he was supporting the excesses of the renegade Lord Tyrell in exchange for fossil material. The Adeptus Astartes launched themselves down upon the corrupted world of Arden 9. Bile's flesh refineries and cloning vats all burned in a single night, as the righteous fury of the Salamanders chapter incinerated all evidence of the Primogenitor's precious experiments. Bile brought low a dozen space marines in the battle, as his once brothers died agonizing and inventive deaths. Yet he barely escaped the battle. He was forced to flee for his life, and his ship was crippled by an Imperial Gothic-class cruiser as he fled for the dubious refuge of the warp. Whether by accident or design, Bile's vessel was slowly drawn into the Eye of Terror. He drifted there for an age, constantly experimenting on those few acolytes he had left, until the hand of some dark god guided his ship into the gravity well of a demon world. Once, the planet had been one of the scintillating jewel walls of the Eldar civilization before their own debaucheries saw their civilization torn apart. Now it was a shriveled ruin, a crone world of seething madness that echoed to the screams of souls long dead. To Fabius Bile, it became home. Bile took up command of the remaining Emperor's Children and regrouped at Canticle City, the fortress of the Emperor's Children on the demon world of Harmony. Bile went about continuing his work from before the Heresy, attempting to unravel the secrets of Gene Seed and the Emperor's science in creating the Primarchs. To that end, Bile continued to clone the Primarchs as he had Ferrus Manus earlier. After capturing Horus's body on Malin during the Legion Wars, Bile created a clone of Horus. This confused creature was found by Abaddon and killed by him in the Battle of Harmony. During the battle, it was revealed that Bile had attempted to clone several Primarchs from samples he had gathered over the ages. The result, however, were a collection of adolescent monstrosities and deformed creatures, which were all subsequently wiped out by Abaddon and his forces. Annoyed, Bile stated that Abaddon has set his work back millennia and fled. The other Emperor's children considered Bile's retreat from Canticle City with the remnants of his work as a betrayal. After the fall of Canticle City, Bile found himself pursued by multiple foes, including Chaos Marines, Eldar, the Dark Council, and even Fulgrim himself. He eventually settled on the Clone World of Urim. In the centuries following the heresy, he traveled the galaxy offering his services to various planetary lords or rebel leaders in return for prisoners, the Flesh Tithe, or ancient technical libra. Many of these ambitious overlords came to regret allowing Bile's experimentations on their people. As a result of his atrocities became apparent. His creations have also infiltrated many imperial planets, helping to hide evidence of his activity and redirect potential enemies. Despite his infamy, Bile still adheres to a twisted version of the old imperial truth, believing that only the foolish and weak seek the comfort of gods and seeking scientific understanding above all else. Bile eventually ended up leading a group of affiliated apothecaries from various legions known as the Consortium based on Urim. Looking for a key to stop the decay of his body and achieve immortality, he was a key participant in the Shattering, the attack by the Emperor's children on the Eldar craft world Laganath in 764 M34. During the attack, it became apparent that his former acolyte Oleander Cole and a group of Harlequins engineered the events to try and convince Fabius to lead the Emperor's children once more. However, Fabius refused to become a war leader and instead insisted that his work would continue. Some time later, Bile found himself continually hunted by Selandri Veilwalker and her band of Harlequins. During one such encounter, he was captured by Flavius Alcinix and taken to Harmony to stand before Eidolon. Eidolon informed Fabius that a lost gene seed tithe of the Emperor's children had been located in the eastern fringes and requested that Bile bring it back to him and the Phoenix Conclave. Alcinix and his troops were kept at Fabius' side to make sure he did not betray his former comrades once more. While exploring the ruins of his former lab on Harmony, Bile discovered that one of his infant clones of Fulgrim still lived. Hoping to use the lost gene tithe and Fulgrim to restore the Emperor's children to what they used to be, Bile departed Harmony. Following Eidolon's coordinates, Bile and his entourage found themselves at the Necron World of Solomons. On its surface, they were assailed by the Necron legions of Trazyn the Infinite. Coming before Trazyn, Bile nearly became part of the Necron Lord's collection, but bargained with the Xenos to exchange his life for the Harlequins which stalked him. Trazyn agreed, and upon their return to the flagship Vesalius, found that Alcinix had attempted to seize the vessel in his absence. Bile's clone of Fulgrim, now matured, had rallied his Gland Hounds to resist Alcinix and his Emperor's children. However, Bile became disturbed by the Gland Hands' dedication to Fulgrim as well as the young clones' insubordination. Fearing that Fulgrim was going down the same path of arrogance as before and worried his new men would be ruined by the Primarch, Bile exchanged the clone and Emperor's children to Trazyn in exchange for the lost gene tithe. Bile came away with enough pure gene seed to produce nearly 18,000 Legionnaires. Sometimes after the events of Solomon's, Fabius Bile sought to further his craft by traveling to Camorra. He managed to enter the Dark City by capturing a Dark Eldar warship and forcing his way in. Allowing himself to be captured, the Heman Kilui were impressed by his bravado and knowledge and agreed to teach him his craft. He studied in the Tower of Flesh under the tutelage of Hexikiahs of the Coven of the 13 Scars. However, when Bile felt he had learned all that he could from the Dark Eldar, he decided it was time to leave. Somehow he instigated a war between the Cabal of the Slashed Eye and the Cabal of the Stolen Conscience. and used the chaos as a cover to escape Camorra, the coven of the 13 Scars, swearing vengeance against him. Bile managed to reach an understanding with the Dark Eldar at the Battle of Belial IV in M37. During the Psychic Awakening, Bile stole a precious Death Guard artifact known as the Contagious. This spurred Typhus and his Blake fleet to pursue the Spider, who was forced to form an alliance with Argento Corian and his Shreven warband. During the subsequent War of the Spider, Bile was able to manipulate all sides to his own advantage. The Shreven were modified into hordes of Terrata, while Corian himself was eventually doomed to become a monstrous golem. During the battle on Pestin Prime, Bile was able to capture a number of Custodes and Sisters of Silence, taking them as test subjects. In the final stage of the war on Disa, Bile was again able to escape as the Shreven, Death Guard, and Custodes destroyed one another. With his research subjects acquired and the Contagious in hand, Bile returned to Urim to begin his work. While Bile is capable of recreating the Primaris Space Marines of Belisarius Call, he considers them lesser than his new men and instead seeks to create something even greater from the genetic template that was used to create the Primaris design. To that end, Bile was able to use his ship Vesalius to invade the Tsar Quisitor, the flagship of Belisarius Call, and the mobile laboratory which produced Primaris Space Marines. After disabling the ship with a massive cyber hacking attack, Bile launched a boarding operation with waves of Terrata, mutants, beastmen, and other abominations. While Cole thought Bile was after the Sang Primus Portum, the artifact that contains the genetic material of all 20 of the Emperor's Primarchs, he was in truth after Alpha Primus, the original Primaris Space Marine. Bile was able to overpower Alpha Primus and steal his progenoid glands before fleeing. Due to his original genetic flaw, Bile's body quickly deteriorates and dies. He has managed to sustain his life over the centuries by creating clones of himself and transferring his own personality and memories into them. The key to Fabius's cloning process is a neural network, which contains regularly updated copies of his neural pathways. These are then normally downloaded into a mindless clone, but under emergency circumstances could be transferred into any transhuman body. The procedure to do this is simple enough for any of his gland hounds to complete. Fabius was able to develop the technique by copying Eldar Infinity Circuit technology. Fabius has died more times than he can count over the millennia, but each time he is able to return in a new body. Though each new Fabius is in effect a new person, they are in essence the same being as they have his exact thoughts, memories, and personality. Despite this apparent immortality, each of Fabius's body is breaking down faster than the last, and he is changing bodies on a regular basis by the 41st millennia. Moreover, should his neural database be destroyed and not rebuilt, Fabius would not be able to be reborn. Alright guys, if you enjoyed this, hit that like button, leave a comment for the algorithm, and make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for more.